Welcome back. If you're just joining us, our guest on this episode of Question Time is the Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, Dr. Waziri Adio. Now, we'll come back to your major findings in the audit report, but there have been reports of operations of smugglers and illegal miners. So who should be responsible for enforcing these permits?
We should be responsible for the enforcement of permits will be, the departments in the Ministry of Solid Minerals. But let's look at it this way. If we look at the 2013 Solid Minerals Audit Report, we'll find out that about 90% of the payments made in the solid mineral sector came from limestone, granite, and laterite, and about 5 point something percent from sand. So the remaining 3% for others, would capture things like gold, like lead, like topaz, like tantalite, all those precious metals, and stones. They're not featuring. They're not featuring not because we do not have those solid, those precious stones and metals, but because they are being mined illegally and they are being exported illegally. So to go back to your question, the people in the Ministry of Solid Minerals, the law enforcement agencies, the people, our customs, and people at the airports to make sure that we fully capture what is being produced, because it's not true that we don't produce gold in Nigeria.
Now, you talk about some mineral resources that many Nigerians are not aware of, like the gold mineral deposit. Are these reflected in the revenue books?
It's not reflected because the sector is dominated by artisanal miners who are not properly organized. And you also have, a lack of a collaboration among different government agencies. And you also have lack of clarity, about legal and fiscal frameworks. So on account of that, the country is not taking full advantage of the benefits, from that sector. If you remember, almost all the states in Nigeria, almost every state has deposits of solid minerals, that can be exploited in commercial quantities. And we're not, that sector is a sector that is grossly underperforming. If you remember in the 60s, solid minerals used to contribute about 5% of GDP. In the 2013 report, we found out that solid mineral sector contributed only 0.13% to the GDP. It contributed only 33 billion naira for that year. And this is a sector where we have enormous potential for growth, for job, for wealth creation, to put our people to work and to put, our country on a better footing. So we need to really do a lot of work there. But good for us, the chairman of our board is also the Minister for Solid Minerals Development. And he and his team, have come up with a roadmap, a sector roadmap, which they're also taking around to stakeholders for validation. And we believe that if that roadmap is faithfully implemented, most of the issues that we have seen in that sector will be addressed.
Who takes responsibility? Is there a possibility of some government officials within the export chain of these minerals that could be conniving with these illegal miners and smugglers?
That is a possibility. There are suggestions or insinuations that the gold mined in Nigeria get to other countries and are recorded as export for other countries. So it is either of two things. Like I said, that could be a possibility. We don't have evidence, and we like to work on the basis of evidence. We have hunches, we can say, okay, we think this is happening, but until we have solid evidence, we cannot go to town on that. But there are different possibilities. One is that there could be the possibility of connivance, like you said, but there could also be the possibility of loose regulation, that the sector is not properly policed in such a way. And also bear in mind that some of this is not like oil, that you can put gold in your breast pocket. So we need to organize the sector better, and in such a way that we address some of those concerns that you have. How do we organize in a way that connivance will not be possible? How do we organize in a way that people will not be able to game the system? How do we organize in such a way that we can attract the big players? Like if you look at the oil sector, which is much more developed, if you look at the Shells of this world, the ExxonMobils of this world, the Chevrons of this world, they are equivalent. They are not in our solid mineral sector. If you, the Rio Tintos of this world, the Anglo-Americans, the Vale, the BHP, Billiton, they are not here. So, and it doesn't mean that we don't have deposits. So we need to organize ourselves in such a way that we're able to attract the big players and we're able to maximize the benefits of this sector, in the interest of our people.
Do we have mines police as gatekeepers of these mines?
The first question to ask is whether we actually have mines in that sense. As in, you say coal mine in South Africa, gold mine in South Africa, or diamond mine in Botswana. No. These, people are, mining illegally across the length and breadth of this country. The places where we are making money from in the mining sector, so to say, they are not from real mining. The major contribution from that sector was from, companies that use byproducts of mining for their work. For example, limestone. About 80% of the contribution came from cement companies. So these are not mining companies. They are manufacturing companies. A substantial section of portion of the payments also came from construction companies like Julius Berger's of this world and others. So they are not mining companies. They are not solid minerals companies. But because they use, they do quarry, they use some of this gravel, granite, for their work, So the real mining is not happening yet. And another way of looking at your question is that we need to organize ourselves in such a way that we can attract the big players and we can put the structure in place. Maybe that structure will be having mining police, but if you have all these small artisanal miners all over the place, do we have the capacity to have, how many people do we have in the ministry that you have in all these places? So the way I would like to answer your question is that we need to organize our sector in a way that will have the structures and the system that will attract the big players and will check leakages and abuses.
The act of illegal mining and smuggling clearly contravenes the Mining Act of 2007. What sanctions are meted out to these defaulters?
The way to look at it, I will go back to my previous answer. There's an act, there are stipulated offenses, and there should be punishment. But before we get to that place, the first thing is, have we organized the sector in such a way that if people violate the law, can we apprehend them? For example, there should be, you cannot export solid mineral without permission, without certificate from the solid minerals ministry. When people export, do the custom people know about that? Do they ask for the certificate? So we need to have more synergy among government agencies. We need to be able to organize that sector in such a way that when people are mining, we know that they are mining, we are policing them, we're able to find out what they are producing and what they should be paying on account of what they are producing. So there's a lot of work to be done. If we say, okay, there's an infraction, you can only punish somebody you have caught. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we need to really, and I don't have any doubt in my mind that with the present minister and with the roadmap that he has developed and other plans, that sector will become a major player again, and we'll be able to take advantage of it, and we'll be able to check some of the leakages, going on at the moment.
You may also join in this conversation by sending your comment on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. Coming up on Question Time, what are NEITI's major findings in 2013 transactions in the oil and gas sector? Find out from the Executive Secretary, Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, Waziri Adio, when we return.